Hello and welcome to the MJ Take, here for my spoiler review of Avatar: The Way of Water. One of the films that has been of, I'll say, some decent controversy among some fan bases this year, whether or not they were in anticipation or not. Avatar is one of those films that over the course of the last decade has been the result or like the victim of a lot of criticism, and I think rightfully so. Look, when I first saw Avatar, by the way, I was only like what, like 12, when actually 13, just a little over 13 when I first saw it. And even back then, guys, that was very critical. I was already a fan in movie reviews. I already knew the art more than well, not more than I do now, but like even maybe like almost as much. Like I know much more about like the film analysis now, but I was way into it back then, 100%. And I felt the movie was overrated story wise, 100%. I felt that it was Pocahontas combined with Dancing McWolves. I thought the characters were pretty damn weak. There wasn't much substance to the story, but the visuals are absolutely fantastic. And overall, I gave it a good review. I gave it like I'd say a 6.8 at the time. I was being a little more direct with my ratings back then when I was 13. So I was coming into this okay in terms of anticipation. I didn't hate it. So, like some people hate it. People love to bash that film. A lot of Marvel fans, DC fans love to bash the first Avatar. I'm not one of those people. I'll give it its criticism and I move on. I understand why it was the phenomenon that it was. And again, it's not like the Avatar fan base really rivals the Marvel fan base or the DC fan base or even the Harry Potter or Hunger Games fan base. Like, it's just people that watch it that like the movies, but a lot of them are like the movie, but a lot of those people are just casual viewers, like my mom. Like they just wanted to go watch a nice movie, nice looking movie, and enjoyed it. And that's how you get over 2 billion. And this if your name is Avengers Endgame. So, with that said, I went into this with okay anticipation. I really liked this movie. And now I'm starting to become a bit of a fan of this Avatar franchise. Now, it is not a perfect film, and it has a lot of the flaws that existed in its first film, but I think it improves upon its flaws. I thought the characters in the first movie were so bland and boring and weak. There was barely any story to them. Jake Sully was okay. Neytiri was okay. Chorus was a boring, bland, a basic sadist villain. Nothing else. You really got nothing else from any more of the Na'vi other than that, just the story of them in general, but no other characters that really mattered. Maybe Neytiri's mom, but that's really kind of barely it. They were just playing basic parents that didn't trust the outsider. Some of the stuff with Grace was interesting. That was the one emotional plot point. You could see that in, the love of Sully and Neytiri, but outside of that, it really wasn't much story-wise. Here, the introduction of Sully's kids and Neytiri's kids and following them around and their interactions as they move into the other tribe, I thought was very compelling, very fascinating. Now, it did get a little dark where I was like, I don't know why these kids are literally trying to kill the Forest Na'vi. They're literally trying to kill them, straight up. I mean, someone made a great comparison on Double Toe, said that these kids were like the kids from a Stephen King movie. I mean, this literally not only bullying, I think they took it even further. They literally were trying to kill the Forest Na'vi children of the Sully tribe. Ridiculous. I mean, that's where it got a little too ridiculous for me. And then especially considering the fact that despite this, Sully's kids still are okay with the fact they were literally almost murdered at the result of these other children. No, it's on. I mean, at this point, and there is a point in the movie where they do have the fisticuffs. But I was like, it is a little brutal for these teenagers to be blowing, strikes at each other like this. Actually, and I know they're warriors, but to be blowing strikes at this and literally trying to kill each other, that was a little bit of a stretch to me. But I love the dynamics, and look, this is not something that is a new storyline. We've seen this sort of storyline in Hollywood before, where you have the family, one family having to move in with another, and the conflicts that can occur between the children. There's nothing new there. But I thought it worked well. I thought it was compelling. I thought it was fascinating. I thought they did a very good job with it. I thought Sully had a lot more to him. I was disappointed, though, in Neytiri. She takes a backseat. Zoe Saldana's character, Neytiri, takes a backseat in this film. which I didn't like because she was one of the stronger points in the first movie, and her, her acting is just incredible. The way she's able to, really convey herself through the screen, despite the CGI that's taking place. Definitely wanted to see more of that. Didn't see enough of that in terms of Neytiri and her character in this movie. Hopefully they improve upon that in upcoming films. But she did a great job with the death of the eldest son. She did a fantastic job there, 100%, and she always kills it in that moment. By the way, was a little rust, that the son just died and then we have to go finish this battle. Might have went another day or two or night on that, but consider the fact this movie is 3 hours. I get it. Let's just finish this third act. But, their whole son just died. It's a little while, but again, the movie is 3 hours. So, but despite it being 3 hours, I thought it was paced very well, actually. I really cannot think of much of this movie that I could have cut. Some people have talked about leaving out the Talokan, the quote unquote whales, and some of the storyline there. The whole murdering Talokan thing doesn't make sense to me still to this point. Like, I get as to why that might make him an outcast, but the whole scenario just didn't make much sense to me, and as to why that wasn't communicated. Maybe they just rid him off and they didn't even want to communicate him to see what happened in that situation and circumstance, but that was very bizarre. Obviously, it's a very convenient plot device, and he was around in the area whenever one of the Sully kids was in danger of being killed. That was very convenient, but I like that storyline, and I thought it added to the beauty of this film. I mean, seeing more of these creatures and seeing more of what these creatures are able to do, I think, and like what they mean to Pandora in general, and Pandora as an entity in general, I think is very fascinating. Now, one aspect that I do want to see more of in upcoming films. So we know the humans are struggling for resources. Earth is, overcrowded. Earth is, not nearly what it once was. But I would really love to see more in terms of why are these humans so desperate? Why are they this damn evil? Because, I mean, it's very easy to just, portray them as, well, they're just evil. Like Quaritch just an asshole, and most of them are just assholes. But I really would like to go into the degradation of these humans' morality and why they're so vicious and brutal. You would think after taking the L that they did in the previous film, they wouldn't necessarily feel compelled to come back 15 years later with more and try again. I mean, the Na'vi is shown to be formidable. Why risk more lives, more war? Is it really that serious? Is this really the only compatible planet that they could find with these resources? I mean, we know the resources on Pandora, very expensive, very lucrative. Want to go more into that. Now, Quaritch, he's better in this because he shows some sympathy for Spider, his son, and this idea of him having a son is a little ridiculous to me. Of course, being back in general is very ridiculous to me. And I know that this is a sci-fi film. Trust me, I like sci-fi films. And this is enough in the future to where I'm like, okay, I can see why and how you could download someone's personality and likeness into one of these avatars. It's still a bit stupid, okay? It's still a bit far-fetched, and I as a guy that's a computer science engineer, I still have a hard time believing that any sort of AI would even feel like motivated to perform any of these actions, even if they have, the downloaded personality of someone. And by the way, there's a whole lot of complications that would come with that. In fact, how this whole human civilization exists with people having the ability to do something like that, it's a little absurd, because human civilization would not last long with that ability. And I'll tell you that if we can download our personalities into these avatar beasts or to any sort of, beings and allow them to operate, would be a wild, wild, wild thing. And that's not a place that I want to be in, that I want to live in. So it's very far-fetched. Don't love it. Don't love it. I didn't like Spider as a character. And I get that he's supposed to be ignorant. He's supposed to feel something for his father. I just don't think there was really much to him. I don't understand why he was going along with all of the stuff that he was going on when he was watching the monstrosities that were happening to some of the Na'vi. And obviously, there's not much that he can do against Quaritch and these avatars. Okay, well, kill yourself or something. I don't know. But you can do a little bit more than just watching these monstrosities take place. And, eventually he lets Quaritch, live, which doesn't really make sense. other than it's being his father, and it's not even his father. It's just his personality and likeness. You can do it again, apparently. Like, so now I'm upset also because, in case you don't know, you'll be spoiled on this. Scorch is supposed to be the main antagonist, basically, for all 5 films. And it's just like, wow, we literally can kill him, and they could download him again, and they could download him again, and they could download him again. And that's really goddamn annoying, people. I'm not gonna lie to you. That annoys the hell out of me. And I'm fine with some franchises having franchise-long villains, but at least usually they're not front and center, so I don't have to worry about it or think about it that much. Like with Voldemort, he only arrives by Goblet of Fire, so I didn't have to, while he was mentioned and he was doing things 100%, you didn't have to worry about him until film 4. Even then, there were other villains that were, taking up some time. It's literally just Quaritch. We need some other villains in here. I need to have some more villains in here that I can care about. Because if it's just gonna be Quaritch coming after these people, and that's literally it for 5 films, it's gonna get boring. One of the other problems I have with this film, it feels very much so like a middle story. This feels like a story that's being told intentionally with the idea that there's going to be 5 films. This did not feel like a real, true, strong escalation from the first film in terms of stakes for me. Like, for instance, the Batman Begins to Dark Knight, that's an elevation of stakes. Captain America to Captain America Winter Soldier, that's an elevation of stakes. This feels like you're writing a 5-film story, and that's a little annoying to me. And again, it worked with Harry Potter. It hasn't been working with Fantastic Beasts, and I don't think it's working here. When you write a 5-film story, I think you need to have each film feel very significant, that you had to watch it. I could just tell you, hey, they end up moving in with this water tribe. There's some conflict. One of the Sully kids dies, and then now they're living with them. And that's really what happens narratively throughout the whole film. So a little frustrating there. And I just really want this franchise to little pick up steam in terms of what's actually going on here in terms of the greater plot of story, or is there even? Or is it just going to be Quaritch following them around? And I think that there is. And I think that the Pandora has a lot of depth and richness to where there should be. So overall, my film score for Avatar: The Way of Water, it gets a 7.5 out of 10 MJ score from me. Again, I enjoyed it. And it's a great date movie if you have the time. It's 3 hours and 12 minutes. I understand that. But if you're willing to sit through it, the visuals are fantastic. Some of the best, literally the best visuals I've ever seen. Being underwater in Pandora was absolutely magical. And it's a place that I am actually looking forward to returning to in 2 years, as long as they're able to fix some of these story points. So there you go. That's going to do it for my solo review of Avatar: The Way of Water. What are your thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water? Let me know down in the comments. Until next time, this has been the MJ Take, and I'm out. See you all later. Cool.